Hello, my name is Jason Boswell from Microfocus. I'm in the File Analysis Suite team. Today we're going to do a data discovery 10-minute demo, and the topic of today is data risk assessments. So what do we mean by a data risk assessment? So in terms of a data risk assessment, the key persona that we're applying to is the compliance team or the chief compliance officer. And as part of his role, he needs to oversee the management of all compliance issues within inside the company. So as that relates to employees, partners, he needs to respond back to this information. So what does he need to do? He needs to do proactive compliance. So he needs to be constantly evaluating and measuring the state of compliance across the organization. He'll probably be doing some investigations, managing investigations into wrongdoing and anything that violates these requirements, and making sure that everybody complies with those policies and complies with that policies in relates to our information. So we found that forces driving these changes. There's a greater kind of or stricter compliance, there's increased fines, there's increased regulations that companies need to abide by. And these are global regulations. You know, we could be in Europe in GDPR, in the States with CCPA, and across any part of the globe, there's these regulations have a kind of common form. And the business pains, you know, of course, as a compliance manager, we'll need to reporting back that we're ensuring the brand reputation and shareholder value. So these tend to be perhaps even more important than the actual fines and any litigation costs. But as well as doing that, balance that against it. We can't just shut down the whole business. The business still needs to operate. So as part of that, we're going to demonstrate today how do we do this data risk assessment with unstructured data. So we're going to flip to the File Analysis Suite and flick to Data Discovery. Okay, so let's bring this across for you so you can see. Okay, so here we have Data Discovery from the File Analysis Suite. Of course, this is a SaaS-based platform, so we can get started absolutely straight away with this. As part of this, we have three main sections: the ability to connect to the data, to analyze the data, and then manage the data. So this gives us the opportunity to, we're going to review what's happened. So as the kind of compliance officer, I'll rely on my system administrators and our data analysts to connect to the appropriate repositories. I will spend most of my time analyzing, you know, that is our level of compliance and what is our level of risk against that compliance across all the repositories. And then inside the manage section, I'm going to actually work with one of the members of my team to do a specific data risk assessment. So let's say I'm going to concentrate on, let's say, the finance department, and we're going to analyze the risk associated with the data with the finance department, and then we can take some specific actions on that. So let's go into the connect tile. So as a compliance manager, I won't be doing this, but it's worth just going in here to review what data we're actually ingesting, what data we're analyzing. So it tells me we've actually got some data in across a time frame here. These have been brought in through a number of different repositories. I can see these in the drop-down list here. So I've got a mixture of data, so Teams, Content Manager, Exchange, and the file system. Where has this data been brought up through? We can have a quick look in here. We've got some, we could have brought data in from different offices around the globe, but most of the data is coming through the agents in the London office. I can see this information in the repositories. Okay, so you can see most of the information I can see here, yes, it's been brought in from the London office. We can see, as before, we've got a team site, so maybe some project work's been going on in there, and we can analyze that project work. We've got some information within inside our content manager system. So this content manager system could be hosted in a cloud environment or could have been hosted on premise. So this one's actually, you can see this is a content manager that's hosted in the London office. We've got some Exchange, so this could be actually in the cloud or hosted locally. This one is hosted locally. And we've got most of my data, you can see most of the documents are in a file system. So we've got quite a range of breakdown of different areas. And you see against each of these, I've dedicated, so this one, for example, I've said this one's actually the finance file system. So if I go and look in the properties of this, you can see that this, the finance system which gone from the London cluster. It's just associated with the finance section of the file system there. And if I look at the attributes, I've defined this as this repository relates to the finance department. So this enables us to put some higher level information in there. Of course, I can decide what to do with this information. So I've set, at the moment, I've decided to look for particular grammars. So as I'm looking for sensitive data, I'm looking for some contact information. I've got some finance information. So I'm looking for grammars across a number of different areas. So I'll be looking for credit cards, passport numbers, things like that. We can see this represented in the tags. Again, this has all been done for me by my system admin team, but it's very quickly to set up. So we've said we're looking for bank details. These are sensitive. We've said credit cards are highly sensitive. All these are editable and configurable within inside the system. But I've let my team look at that, and I can go straight through and spend most of my time in the analysis section. So what's happened? So this is really as the compliance team, I can start to look at all the data that's been brought in. Let's look at it across the last year. So I started analyzing data over the last year, and the red line shows me how much contains sensitive data, and the black line shows me how much data we've analyzed. So this is, we can say, 80% of my data contains a level of sensitive data. But how is that broken down? Where should I start my analysis? Where should I start putting some actions in place to manage this information? So let's have a quick look. If most of it is identification data. We can see this in the line here. And the most of it's from the IT department. If I change this into cluster mode, I can see most of this stuff is in London, from the London office, but there's actually quite a bit of stuff in the cloud as well. If I say I'm not bothered about commercial and confidence data or health data, let's concentrate on the sensitive data, and perhaps let's remove the partial sensitive data. I can see now the breakdown is, most of it's contact data, but there is some financial data. If I'm particularly concerned about that, I can click on that and have a detailed view of just the financial data. You can see that this is actual financial data here. So we should be doing some things to take control of this information. It definitely contains a level of financial data. I see bank account numbers and sort codes here. In terms of trended information, I can see how this has changed over a period of time. So if I look at the past, let's look at the past 7 months. I can see we've got a slight increase in trend of our sensitive information. You can see, and the ones that are perhaps trending the most, because we've got documents related to US insurance companies. And in terms of sensitive data tags, which ones are genders? Names obviously there, but are of concern. We've got lots of sort codes, social security numbers. So we can see how these are changing over periods of time. So finally, we're going to move to the last section here, which is to actually manage some of this data. So let's go to the manage section and do a risk assessment of the finance department. We've got some different data processes that we can take here. We can do some ROT analysis, we can do data subject access requests, but today we're going to concentrate on looking at the finance department's risk analysis. So let's go straight into that workspace template. So here we've set the data source to purely look at the finance data. So this could be across a number of different repositories. So it's inside SharePoint and Content Manager. And first of all, we can see a date line to see, we've got some information, a little information from the early 2000s, but most of our information is really between 2008 and 2016. The breakdown per file type, most of them are Word documents, but there are some XML documents, PDF documents, some older Word formats. In terms of its tagging, how we can see that inside the finance department, it's not a surprise that we've got lots of bank account numbers and some credit card numbers, lots of addresses. These are things that represent a concern and risk to the organization. I can see a breakdown of how this is broken down in terms of a mapping view. And each of these allow you to look at, perhaps let's look at the addresses. And if I just want to look at items that contain addresses, I can click on this view here. And it's also broken down into categories of regulatory, financial, and legal. Each of these categories are totally flexible. You can define your own categories to how you break down this data. If we want to look at individual items here, so let's say have a look at these ones that contain bank account numbers. So it takes me to that similar view that we had before. If this was a real large data set, and if I wanted to break that down by which are the most highly sensitive items, just concentrate on those. We want to concentrate a particular date range, or even concentrate on a particular repository type. So let's only look at the file system or SharePoint. I can decide to do that here. Let's say we need to take some action on these highly sensitive items. We can see that they've got quite a high risk score here. This is a high risk score here, and these are actually located in SharePoint. I can see that from the metadata, and inside the metadata, you can see these are in this part of SharePoint, and the record dates are 2009. We should remove these from the system. So I can select all these items and manage and add these selected items to a workbook. Let's add them to take the action to be removed from the system. That doesn't immediately delete this information. What this does is it tags those items and then adds these items to the workbook. So you see these 4 items have been added to be removed. These are static ones. So this is manual analysis, goes into the blue ones, but these ones that are in the more orangey color here, these are automatically added. So the analysis automatically classifies this information as credit card or passport data, and we can then take the appropriate action based on that. So finally, I just want to show you the actions that we can take. So if these are records, for example, I would select the ones that need to be created as records within the system. I would then send these to targets. So I've got some areas of my content manager system that I can declare these to. So these ones actually happen to be sales contracts. They could have been purchase orders, they're invoices. The list is totally flexible. And so this is totally linked to whatever classification you have within inside the system. So let's say these were actually invoices that come from the finance department. I guess not a surprise. I'll make Greg our assigner and I'll submit these for approval to be created as records. Alternatively, we could take another action to delete these items. So these are the ones that we said contain bank details. They shouldn't be in that system. They should be removed. These are in the regulatory category. Let's delete these items. So again, there's no options for delete, but we do need to specify a reviewer. So someone's got the information owner does that and approves these actions. Finally, I just want to show you, we've done a risk assessment, we've analyzed the data, we've concentrated on the finance section, we've taken some of those actions, but each one of those actions that we take can be reported on and can be audited. So we have a full audit of all the actions that are taken. So let's go back to our home section. We've done a very quick demonstration of a data risk assessment. We've seen that we've connected to different data. We've done some high-level analysis, which as a compliance manager, I spend most of the time looking at. And then we did a risk assessment, concentrating on the finance department, took some actions to manage these items as records, send those to content manager to be declared as records to manage the disposition. And we out some items that didn't need to be kept, we disposed from the system. All actions were reported and actioned on. So thank you very much and look forward to speaking to you again soon.